What's with the United Kingdom? They seem to be taking like the leading position on advocating for Ukraine and defending Ukraine, and except for French President Macron, who is suggesting maybe
Right.
Western boots on the ground. Sounds like World War III to me. UK has said that, well, Ukraine has the right to decide how to use the long range weapons that the West provided them. Previously, there were restrictions, which I'll jokingly point out. It reminds me of taking federal dollars. You know, they take them from us, they go to Washington, and when you get them back, there's strings attached. Well, if you take Western weapons, apparently there are strings attached. So you take them along with micromanagement of your how to use them. But by releasing the restrictions, they can now, are free, Ukraine is, to launch these longer range weapons deep into Russia, thereby escalating the situation. I don't know if that's a good or bad idea, but I'm just kind of curious about the United Kingdom and its role here and where this is going. Welcome back, Daniel Davis. Sorry for the long-winded nature of that intro.
Well, as always, thanks for having me back here. I always enjoy these Tuesday morning shows. I tell you, Brian, it does seem to be a race between France and Britain on who's going to try and gum this up the most, and who seems intent on really just continuing to try to provoke Russia into doing something. It almost seems that they're trying to say, how far can we push them before something happens? I don't know that that's happening. I'm just saying, based on the actions, one has to reasonably ask that question. The the issue that you're talking about here is the most urgent case in point, because Britain has been providing Storm Shadow missiles, long range missiles, for quite a while now. So it's not a new capability they're giving them. It's a new, well, a cutting of the string, as you
Right.
pointed out. Now it's saying that before they had said you can't use it inside Russia proper. You can only use it inside Ukrainian territory to defend yourself, etc. But now Lord Cameron, their Minister of Defense, former Prime Minister, is saying, yeah, now then you can do whatever you want. You can launch it into Russia. There's many problems, but here's one of the bigger ones. What is your strategy? What is the intent behind this? What are you trying to accomplish? Can someone make a plausible argument that if Russia or if Ukraine is able to launch these deep into Russia, that suddenly that's going to change the conditions on the ground? Because there's an already looming consequence of this, in that the Russians very quickly responded and said, if you use British weapons to giving them to Ukraine and they attack targets inside Russia proper on our issues, we will respond in kind. We will attack British support and British military targets inside Ukraine and beyond. They added that phrase to it, and beyond, meaning that wherever British facilities are, they will come under attack if the Russians get hit. So, of course, that has to ask the question, does that mean on NATO territory somewhere outside of Ukraine? One doesn't, it's not clear on that, but it's raised the possibility because of Article 5 that this could escalate beyond that, because Russia, especially if you hit something really sensitive, they're going to be hard pressed not to respond
Right.
in kind.
Right. Well, I mean, Russia launching an attack on one of the NATO countries directly, or the NATO country's assets, that might, enact some sort of defense obligation on the part of all the other NATO countries, dragging us all in. And that's why I mentioned World War III, because that's pretty much what it would be, since Russia's got the backing, at least behind the scenes, of China and some of our other foes, including Iran. So, all the bad guys are ganging up on one side, and the other side happens to be the NATO countries. This doesn't sound like a positive development, Daniel.
Well, and yeah, and then we get back to the original question. What's your intent here? What is the West trying to do? NATO writ large, or UK specifically? Is this going to bring an end to the war? Because, as I've said on your show many times, the military fundamentals are overwhelmingly in Russia's favor. They have so much more of everything that you need to wage and win a war than Ukraine and the West combined have, that there's no rational path for Ukraine to even hang on, much less to win the war. So why would you want to exacerbate the other side when so far, and listen, this may come as a surprise to many, but Russia has been very selective on the targets that they've hit. They
Right.
could expand the target list even within Ukraine if they continue to feel like that they're being provoked and attacked inside their country. And that is something still possible. And we don't want to see that. What I want to see is a negotiated settlement so that the destruction of people in Ukraine stops, not to expand it.
And I certainly understand that. Is it possible, and I throw this out there because, of course, we had our own terrible experience in Afghanistan, but prior to our involvement, of course, Russia was there, and it was a meat grinder, and it really impacted the hearts and minds of the Russian people, sending their young men off to die in some remote region, although not as remote as it is to us, but it was a terrible, drug out, long, and, of course, pointless exercise. Is it possible that by launching into Russia proper, that this could sort of revive that, oh my God, we don't want another one of these. Ukraine's been a meat grinder. I lost my son, or my neighbor lost their kids over there. Lots of people are dying on both sides. This is a pointless gesture. Why are we even invading Ukraine? Is it really necessary? One of those kind of things, because look,
Yeah.
now it's raining bombs in our backyard.
Yeah, no, but for a very, very fundamental reason. The Soviet experience in Afghanistan was like our experience in Afghanistan, our experience in Vietnam. It was a war that was far away, that had nothing to do with their national security. Nobody even knew why they were fighting it. This one is radically different because Russians feel like this is the entire West against them. And they're right. It is. There's, every month we in Ramstein, Germany, we meet the defense ministers. 50 nations come together to find out what they're going to give Ukraine to fight Russia. And of course, now you're seeing Britain providing the latest graphic evidence that it is the West that's directly fighting against Russia. You have the French Foreign Legion. Is reportedly 1,500 French Foreign Legionnaires have been sent into Ukraine. France denies it publicly, but there's lots of evidence on the ground that it may well be true. But the belief in Russia is that it is true. So they're not going to tire of this because they view this as an existential threat. NATO has nuclear weapons, and they're afraid that at some point that could be used, which is why they're now doing a tactical nuclear weapon exercise in direct threatening to the West over getting more involved. To your point of World War III, this stuff is getting serious, and we don't want to keep going down that path.
Well, I'd agree with you there because I don't like war, and nobody does. But tactical nuclear weapon exercises, that of course is a warning to all of the Western countries. Just a reminder, we do have these tactical nuclear weapons. I mean, these are smaller in size and scale than the, Hiroshima and Nagasaki sort of multi-megaton types of bombs, right? They're more tactical is in the word tactical nuclear weapons, aren't they?
Yeah, it's something you can use on the tactical battlefield as opposed to a strategic nuclear force. That's why Russia specifically called it a non-strategic nuclear exercise, which they call a tactical nuclear weapon, which means it can be used. But, small is in the eye of the beholder. Right. Anytime you see a mushroom cloud go up, it crosses a mental threshold that God help us if we ever cross.
Well, I was hoping for maybe some better news from you today, Daniel Davis.
Well, the better news would be let's stop being stupid and risking a war with nothing to gain. There is nothing to gain here and a lot to lose. So let's stop being stupid and end this war.
Well, let me ask you this, just as before we part company today on that. You'd like to have a resolution. Everybody like to have a resolution. If there was some sort of resolution that Russia would accept, that would require Ukraine giving up some territory. I know there are pockets of Ukraine that are filled with pro-Russia, like Crimea, and that's why Russia entered in Crimea, because I guess the majority of the population there is pro-Russia anyway. So that wasn't really truly an invasion from their standpoint. They were welcoming everybody home. But there are other parts of Ukraine that may have that. But as far as the Ukrainian people are concerned, I think they enjoyed their independence from Russia. So how could a negotiable peace be accomplished here?
Well, most of the four oblasts, the four territories that Russia illegally annexed last year, are significantly majority Russian speakers. Now, it's not a full, but it's a significant majority. So that's something that they feel that they can work with and they want. What Russia doesn't even want is those oblasts, especially west of the Dnieper River, because then it's hardly any Russian speakers, and it would be nothing but a guarantee of some sort of insurgency fight afterwards, which Russia has no interest in getting. So they are okay with what they have, maybe even would want a little bit more like all of the Donbass, which is primarily Russian. And I think that they could have a negotiated settlement for that, which Ukraine doesn't want. They hate it. But that is probably the price for a peace, because if you don't, then Russia probably will continue on and conquer even more territory and kill more people. There is a price to pay for not doing what you don't want to do now.
But would that be viewed by the Russians as capitulation on the part of the proxy wagers, which are the Western countries? Look, we were able to enter the country. We were able to secure the territory we actually really want and desire. We win. I mean, we were able to defeat the NATO powers in their proxy war. That would
Yes,
wouldn't that
that's
embolden
the
them?
harsh truth.
Yeah.
The we don't want to admit that, but that's what we're, because we didn't make the negotiated settlement early in the war when we had a chance, or we didn't do it late in 2022 when we had another chance. We kept going for victory. That's going to cost us in the end, because now then, not only is Ukraine going to lose, we're going to be seen as losing, and not just in Russia, but throughout the world, when they see that everything that NATO tried to do for now 2+ years ended up failing. That's going to undercut all of our credibility.
And of course, China is learning a lot from this, are they not?
They are. I mean, they of course, everybody's paying attention to this because they see the West pursuing policies that logically couldn't succeed. There was a reason why we should have done the negotiated settlement, because then we could have come out actually on top. But instead, we pursue the unattainable, and then we end up losing everything. And unfortunately, that is one of the things I worry that China could be paying attention to, because they could think, okay, you make dumb decisions, and we know how to exploit that in a war, in a potential war for over Taiwan. I hope that never happens, but it is something I worry about.
I understand that worry and concern, and I share it with you. Daniel Davis, Deep Dive. Find him online. Just search Daniel Davis Deep Dive.